Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel Dhyani classes. If you are watching my video for the first time, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that I get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So in today's video we will cover the second part of the chapter Deep Water written by William Douglas. So let's get started. Then my eyes and nose came out of the water, but not my mouth. That means when he was struggling with water to come out, his eyes and nose came out of the water, but his mouth was still underwater. Further he says, I flailed at the surface of the water, swallowed and choked. So here he is saying that he was trying very hard to come out while beating his hands and legs here and there at the surface of the water and looking for help, but he got failed and swallowed more and more water and choked. So choked refers to having severe difficulty in breathing. I tried to bring my legs up, but they hung as dead weights, paralyzed and rigid. So here he is saying that he tried very hard to pull out his legs, but he was not able to move because his legs became very heavy and lifeless. Further he is saying a great force was pulling me under. I screamed, but only the water heard me. So as he was not able to use his leg, so again a great force of water was pulling him under the water, and as soon as he felt something was pulling him down, he screamed. That means he started shouting, but nobody could hear him because he went inside the water. I had started on the long journey back to the bottom of the pool. So again the great force of water pulling him down to the pool, and says it was the second time when he went back to the bottom of the pool, and this time there was no plan in his mind to come out from the water because his legs were hung as dead weights. I struck at the water as I went down, expanding my strength as one in a nightmare fights an irresistible force. So here he is saying that he was still hitting hard in the water using his full strength as if he was experiencing a frightening dream or fighting with water and trying to break the immense force of the water to save himself from going deep end of the pool. So nightmare means unpleasant or bad dream, and irresistible force means powerful force or uncontrollable force. I had lost all my breath, my lungs ached, my head throbbed. So again he started going down and he lost all his breath because he was screaming, and his lungs started paining and felt a sensation on his head because he was drinking water and shouting. And then he says, I was getting dizzy. That means he was getting unconscious or faint as he was feeling very weak and losing all his strength. But I remembered the strategy. I would spring from the bottom of the pool and come like a cork to the surface. So here he is saying that still he was able to remember a plan or method he had made in the beginning and thought he would hit the bottom once he will reach the bottom and come back to the surface like a cork. Further he says, I would lie flat on the water, strike out with my arms and thrash with my legs. So that means once he will come out top of the water, he would lie flat and would use his legs and he will hit the water as much as he can. And then I would get to the edge of the pool and be safe. That means he was hitting in the water using his hands and legs and thought that he would be able to swim and come to the edge of the pool and would be able to save himself. But I went down endlessly. I opened my eyes. So here he is saying that whatever plan he had made, it was worthless, and again he went down and down into the pool, and while going down he opened his eyes. Further he says, nothing but water with a yellow glow, dark water that one could not see through. That means he is saying that when he went down in the water, he opened his eyes and then he could see only dark and yellow water, and he was not able to see anything, even bottom of the pool as well. And then stark terror seized me, terror that knows no understanding, terror that knows no control, terror that no one can understand who has not experienced it. That means he got frightened, and again a stark terror. That means a very strong terror seized him or freeze him, and says terror that knows no understanding, a terror that knows no control. That means at that time he was facing that kind of terror cannot be controlled, and nobody can understand where this kind of terror comes from, and it can only be understood by those who have experienced a similar situation in their life. I was shrieking underwater, so he was still making efforts and shouting and seeking help under the water, and says, I was paralyzed underwater, stiff, rigid with fear. Even the screams in my throat were frozen. So here he is saying that due to fear of water he got paralyzed, and he was very frightened at that time, and he was not able to move his body at all, and even the screams in my throat were frozen. That means he wanted to shout out loud, but he was not able to scream due to fear of water, and says the water was still around me. That means still he was under the water and trying very hard to save himself to going deep end of the pool. Further he says only my heart and the pounding in my head said that I was still alive. So here he is saying that only his heart was pumping heavily and he was feeling pain in his head. So his heart and head indicating that still he was alive at that time. And says, and then in the midst of the terror came a touch of reason. So here he is saying that when he was inside the water, he was feeling very frightened, and suddenly he came up with a plan that he made earlier, and says, I must remember to jump when I hit the bottom. That means he recalled the plan that he had to jump when he touched at the bottom of the pool, and at least I felt the tiles under me. My toes reached out as if to grab them. I jumped with everything I had. So finally he reached the bottom of the pool, and as soon as he felt tiles below his feet, he jumped up with everything that I had. That means he summoned all his strength and jumped up. But the jump made no difference. The water was still around me. That means he jumped up, but all his efforts did not work at all, and he was not able to come to the surface like a cork, and he still found water around him. That means still he was under the water. Further he says, I looked for ropes, ladders, water wings, and nothing but water. So when he found only water around him, then he started looking for ropes, water wings and ladders so that he can come out of the water, but he couldn't find anything on the water. A mass of yellow water held me. So he was not able to see anything because dark yellow colored water was around him, and again stark terror took an even deeper hold on me like a great charge of electricity. That means again he got frightened, and it was a stark terror. That means a very powerful and utter fear, and he shook him like a great charge of current, and he was not able to move at all. I shook and trembled with fright. My arms wouldn't move. So due to stark terror he started trembling. That means he started shaking, quivering with fear, and he was not able to move his arm as well. My legs wouldn't move. I tried to call for help, to call for mother. Nothing happened. So here he is saying that he tried to move his legs, but he would not be able to move his legs, and then he tried to get help and wanted to call out his mother to save him from water, but nothing happened. That means nobody came for the help. And then strangely there was light. I was coming out of the awful yellow water. So here he is saying that it was a surprising thing for him to see that there was a light, and he was able to come out from the water, or he was able to come out from the scary and dirty yellow water, and says at least my eyes were. That means this time his eyes were come out of the water, and says my nose were almost out too. Then I started down a third time. So here he is saying that his nose was almost out of the water. That means his half head was out of the water, and then again he started going down third time. That means again he started going down for the third time into the water, and says further he says I sucked for air, got water, the yellowish light was going out. So in order to breathe underwater he tried to inhale air, but only water went inside his mouth, and says the yellowish light was going out. That means the awful light or awful yellowish light from the water becoming lighter as compared to what he had seen earlier. Then all effort ceased. I relaxed, even my legs felt limp, and a blackness swept over my brain. So finally he stopped making efforts to save himself, because whatever efforts he had made, it was worthless, and then he felt as if he was relaxing and his legs became limp. That means hobble or lifeless, and a blackness swept over my brain. That means nothing was going on in his mind, such as plan that he had made earlier in order to scream or fight or jump from the bottom of the pool to come out of the surface, etc. It wiped out fear, it wiped out terror. There was no more panic. So as soon as blackness swept over his brain, he felt relaxed, and there was no fear and no terror in his mind, and it was ended, and there was no more panic. And says It was quiet and peaceful. That means that every fear and terror has just vanished away from his mind, and he was not frightened at all. And at that moment he was feeling very quiet and peaceful. Nothing to be afraid of. This is nice. To be drowsy, to go to sleep. No need to jump. Too tired to jump. So here he's saying that this was the third time when he was going down into the pool, and this time he didn't try to save himself, and this time he was not afraid at all, and he was feeling very nice to go deep end of the water. And to be drowsy, that means he was feeling sleepy, and then he started sleeping and says no need to jump, too tired to jump. That means he was feeling very tired because he had made lot of efforts while jumping to come out from the water, but it didn't work at all, and thinking it's nice to be carried gently, to float along in space. So he was feeling as if somebody holding his arm very nicely and carrying him gently, and tender arms like mothers. That means he felt that his mother holding him in her arm lovingly, and now I must go to sleep. So he felt that he has to go to sleep because he was very tired and helpless. Further he says, I crossed oblivion and the curtain of life fell. So here he is saying that I crossed oblivion. That means he got unconscious and he felt that curtain of life fell. That means he felt that that was the end of his life and his death was just near. The next I remember, I was laying on my stomach beside the pools vomiting. So here he became unconscious and floating on the water like a dead body, and later on maybe somebody took him out of the pool, and says he found himself laying beside the pool on his stomach, and then he was vomiting only water that had gone inside of his stomach. The chap that threw me in was saying, but I was only fooling. So here he is saying a guy who threw him into the pool was standing there, and when he saw the narrator, he said that I was only fooling. That means he threw him only for the sake of fun. So chap means a fellow or a guy. Someone said the kid nearly died, be alright now. So immediately somebody replied to the chap, you did it for the sake of fun only, but this kid was about to die, but we saved him and he is fine right now. Let's carry him to the locker room. So then again they took him to the locker room so that he can take a rest because he was looking very weak and frightened. Several hours later I walked home. So after taking rest he was able to walk and he started going to home. I was weak and trembling. I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. So here he is saying that he was still feeling very weak and trembling and his whole body was shivering, and I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. That means somehow he reached home and he was crying and shivering while laying on the bed because he was thinking about the incident which he experienced in the pool and he was about to die. Further he says, I couldn't eat that night. For days a haunting fear was in my heart. So here he is saying that he didn't eat anything that night when he reached home, and he was only crying and feeling frightened because he was it was the second time he was facing misadventure in his life, and says for some days a haunting fear was in my heart. That means after this incident powerful waves of fear keeps him frightening that went on his heart for many days. The slightest exertion upset me, making me wobbly in the knees and sick to my stomach. So here he is saying that due to misadventure, the slightest exertion upset me. That means the slightest movement around him or lifting lighter weight made him physically upset and would feel unstable in knees. And once he thought about that misadventure, that incident would come in his mind and would feel like a pain in his stomach. I never went back to the pool. I feared water. So from that day onwards, he never went back to the pool for swimming because he feared the water. That means he started afraid of water after that incident, and says, I avoided it whenever I could. So he decided to avoid water as much as he can because this fear of water was making him wobbly and weak. So this is the end of the second part of this chapter, deep water. So let's look at the third part of the chapter in my next video. For more informative videos, do subscribe my channel. Hit the bell icon so that I get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So thank you so much for watching once again. Stay safe, stay healthy.